So the Surgeon General, Dr. Jerome Adams, on Friday had gave a message to the black community at that time period. And he wanted to let us know about the seriousness of the coronavirus. Now, it's not that he was speaking to the black community about certain situations with our health. That's what the Surgeon General is supposed to do. But I want you to hear in the way he done it, because there's a lot of people that's very upset and bothered by what he said. I'm gonna give you my take on this, but I want to go ahead and roll this particular clip of him, and then the sister from PBS, she's gonna kind of respond to it, but let's roll those two clips.
More often than you ever dreamed possible. Avoid alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. And call your friends and family. Check in on your mother. She wants to hear from you right now. And speaking of mothers, we need you to do this, if not for yourself, then for your abuela. Do it for your granddaddy. Do it for your big mama. Do it for your pop-pop. We need you to understand, especially in communities of color, we need you to step up and help stop the spread so that we can protect those who are most vulnerable. This epidemic is a tragedy, but it will be all the more tragic if we fail to recognize and address the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 and an array of other diseases and risk factors on communities of color. The task force and this administration are determined not to let that happen. The president, the vice president have said we will not let that happen. We can't fix these issues overnight, but I promise you we will work with your communities to quickly and meaningfully move the needle in the right direction. Nothing less than the fate of our families and friends. My family and friends depends on it.
African Americans and Latinos should avoid alcohol, drugs, and tobacco. You also said do it for your abuela, do it for Big Mama and Pop Pop. There are some people already there are some people online that are already offended by that language and the idea that you're saying behaviors might be leading to these high death rates. Could you talk about whether or not could you, I guess, have a response for people who might be offended by the language that you used?
Well, I use that language because that's the language. I've been meeting with the NAACP, with the National Medical Association, with others. I actually talked with Derek Johnson multiple times this week, the head of the NAACP, and we need targeted outreach to the African American community, and I use the language that is used in my family. I have a Puerto Rican brother-in-law. I call my granddaddy granddaddy. I have relatives who call their grandparents Big Mama. So that was not meant to be offensive. That's the language that we use and that I use, and we need to continue to target our outreach to those communities. It is critically important that they understand it's not just about them. And I was very clear about that. It's not just about what you do, but you also are not helpless. We need to do our part at the federal level. We need people to do their parts at the state level, and we need everyone, black, brown, white, whatever color you are, to follow the president's guidelines, the coronavirus guidelines, and do their part. Because when I talked to the NAACP 3 weeks ago, it's important to note that one of the things they asked me was, can you help dispel the myths in this community that people actually can't get coronavirus if they're black? That was a myth that was out there that's actually very important for us to squash here.
So do you recommend that all Americans avoid tobacco, alcohol, and drug use at this time?
Absolutely. It's especially important for people who are at risk and with comorbidities, but yes, all Americans. So thank you, and I will clarify that. All Americans need to avoid these substances at all times. I put out a smoking cessation report in January. I put out an advisory against youth and pregnant women using marijuana last year, and that was not directed towards any one race. That's everybody needs to do everything they can to be as healthy as possible at this critical time.
Now, I know what was offensive about it to a lot of people. And let me start off what was offensive before we even get to what they claiming this offensive part is, saying Big Mama. No, that's not really the part. But let me get to the part that really a lot of people took issue with, at least you should have took issue with. When he's talking to the black community and he's telling you about drinking and smoking and he's pointing us out. Now, he didn't go say, hey, white people, you stop drinking, you stop smoking, etc. He's pointing us out, like trying to basically make us the face of that behavior. When we know people of all groups do that, and one group in particular do it more than others, because there's more of them here than with us. So we can't do all the drinking and the smoking. But that's the first part that really was, I believe, offensive. The second part, when he talked about, the Big Mama and all of that, and some people have issue with that. I don't take too much issue with it when he explained that, hey, that's what people he calling his family and et cetera. And he kind of said, well, this is what people call my family. And then some people do call their grandmothers, at least in the Latino community, abuela, abuelo for your grandfather. I mean, that's normal. Some people do call their grandfathers in the black community pop, paw paw. That's another one. You got Big Mama. You got all kind of different names that we have. So I get he's trying to like basically relate when he's saying that. So I didn't take offensive to that. I just didn't like the fact that you're trying to label us as the one that's doing all the drinking and the smoking, etc. Right? Now, when the sister had asked that question and made that follow up and he cleared it up, okay. Some people were upset also and saying, well, they sent him up there just to talk to black people because he's the, token black dude. So they're going to use him to talk to black people. Well, I wouldn't say he's a token anything. I mean, I kind of looked at his career. I mean, he's earned where he's gotten to in his life. So I don't want to say he's a token for anything. But what I will say is, Jerome, in the future, just think a little bit before you speak. Don't just target black people with certain behaviors, because when by the data, all people in this nation is doing the same thing, some more than others. So yes, you clarified it later, but I would say in the future, especially talking to black people about certain things, don't put negative things on us and then try to admonish us to do something, because it's going to seem like, okay, he's kind of like putting us on Front Street before the world at the White House and everybody else he letting have a pass. But I wouldn't say throw the brother away or going too far with it, because I just seen some people just really pissed off at the guy. But, it's not that big of an issue. At least for me, just correct that behavior, which he followed it up once he was questioned by the sister. But leave me a comment, let me know what you think about this particular story with Jerome Adams making a comment. Did it offend you? Or do you think, well, hey, it's just, one of the things he had to say? Let me know.